welcome to The Executive Appeal, a show that convenes the world's most powerful and successful leaders to share mentoring and career advancement advice to help you successfully transition into senior level executive positions. I'm your host, Alex Tremble, award-winning speaker, author, and leadership expert with over a decade of experience coaching and advising some of our nation's most senior level government leaders. So if you're ready to reach your goals, let's get started. Hey, you wonderful, welcome, ambitious, cool, slick, slide, cool cats. I think I'm trying to be cool, but every time I say cats, people think I'm older. Anyways, to another power-packed episode of The Executive Appeal. I am your host, Alex Tremble, and I am thrilled to have you join us here today. Look, this podcast, as you know, goes beyond the ordinary, moving past the cliches of just work hard to actually uncovering the true secrets of success at the executive level. And by the way, if you didn't know this already, I'm not just your cool masterminding host that's going to lead you through this learning journey. I'm also an international keynote speaker and executive coach. So if you're seeking an engaging and motivational speaker for your next event, look no further. I've had the opportunity and privilege to address audiences across the world, sharing insights that go beyond the surface and leave a lasting impact. Whether it's developing meaningful relationships with your team, your mentor, your clients, your fellow executives, or if it's focusing on providing your audience with the strategies required to achieve exceptional results in the face of life's complex challenges, I've got you covered. So don't miss out on an opportunity to elevate your team and your stakeholder potential. Visit alextremble.com today to book me to speak at your next event, and let's make your next event unforgettable together. Now, with no further ado, let me say today is a good day. Today is a good day because we have the always immaculately dressed and high-powered, high-energy Miss Jourdan Hathaway. Jourdan currently serves as the Chief Marketing Officer at the General Assembly, which is a pioneer in education and career transformation, specializing in today's most in-demand skills, fostering a flourishing community of professionals pursuing careers they love. And prior to this role, Ms. Jourdan served as the Senior Vice President for Operations at Wiley University Services. Yes, the Wiley, the big Wiley. So you know she has some stories. And in this role, she was loved by just about everyone. And I say just about everyone because, you know, the answer is really everyone. But I was trying to be, I don't want to pump her head up too much. How are you doing today, madam?
I mean, with that intro, I feel like I'm on cloud nine. I'm doing pretty great. I wish I walked to work every morning and had that kind of intro. So thank you for having me. It's so great to connect with you again.
Madam, well, look, here's the answer though. All you have to do is listen to this episode on repeat as you're walking every day, and there you go.
Perfect. I will do so. I will up those streaming counts.
Well, I love to jump into that last comment I made as I was introducing you. Like seriously, there are people who are liked. There are people who are like, oh yeah, my manager is good. And then there's also people who are like, everyone, like a lot of people are like, yeah, that person's really good. Jourdan, I have never seen anyone like you. I've seen you've been leading through very complex and challenging times, yet consistently, everyone who works with and around you says the same thing. Jourdan, you're amazing. How did you communicate like that? You're making me feel very comfortable, even as we're going through difficult times. Like you have a tendency to just bring out the absolute best in everyone. And I'd love to ask you how. Like, how do you lead in such a way that you inspire so much love from everyone around you?
Alex, I think a former younger me would be really meek in answering your question. I think I would have not had the courage enough to maybe be as bold to say, I work really hard at it. It's very intentional. I have put a tremendous amount of time and energy and thought into what it means to be a good human. Forget being a good manager, a good leader, a good boss, all of that. I mean, just a good human. And I've done a lot of self-work on myself to get to a place where I feel pretty confident in saying, I think I can say I'm a really good human. At the same time, when I think about work and being surrounded by a team of people, you're with these people for so much of your day. And it becomes really, really important if you want to go to work and feel like you're in this valuable, productive, great, energetic place where you can thrive. You have to also embody that and be that. And I've learned long ago, you can't walk in and galvanize a team unless you're really, 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 really part of the team and you care about the players. And I don't mean care about them in lip service. I mean in action, in everyday action, big, small, in between, medium. So there's nothing more, Alex, that you could say to me. Forget accolades, forget titles, forget awards, forget anything. The best thing that you could possibly say about me is that is what you just said about me, which is that people love to work with me, and that means a lot to me. So thank you for bringing that up.
No, well, you're very welcome. I would have been more meek in the past. No, no, but thank you. I'll take that. Um, and I'd love to ask you, when you've worked intentional at this, it takes energy, it takes time. How do you go about caring for all these people and doing, and not even just caring, because I think it's really easy for someone to quote unquote think, oh yeah, I care about them, I really care about them, but there's a difference between in believing it in your head and then also doing actions. Like you fly across the country to sit down with someone to make sure they're okay. Like, you are that person. How do you also have the energy for yourself? Like, how do you manage that?
Um, it's a balance. I mean, some days, I don't have the energy for myself. Just full disclosure, I think a lot of people might say I don't have the energy for myself, but I don't let that rest for too long, because you have to fill your own tank before you can be
Mhm.
that for others. I would also just say, yes, definitely we'll fly across the country in really complex, hairy, sticky situations where it calls for it.
Mhm.
I would also say that it most often doesn't take that. What it takes is I'll give you an example of something that happened not too long ago. I had an employee who was getting ready for their first presentation, and they were nervous. They had not been in this kind of room before. They had some anxiety about presenting to this team, and we workshopped it before they got through, got through the presentation. Okay, so right, that's doing your job, helping somebody prepare for a meeting and then do their best in the meeting. That's not where it stops, where you build that kind of that trust and that relationship with people. After the presentation, I was sure to make myself a calendar note that said, check in with the person and see how it went.
Mm.
And so it was that intentional. I reached back out, how'd the presentation go? They gave me some feedback just in a Slack channel. And then I could tell there was something that they wanted to kind of work through that maybe they didn't want to text about or really get into. So I just picked up the phone and did a quick huddle, like on the spot. Hey, do you want to talk about this part? They shared how they were, they didn't think that they did their best on this one particular topic. I had been through that kind of topic before. So I workshopped how I navigated that. And I too didn't do a great job 10 years ago when I was trying to navigate that particular topic. So we could relate on that kind of aspect. And then several days later, okay, here's the key. Several days later, I saw that same employee, same colleague, in another setting, where I noticed them present on a topic that was in that same range, and they nailed it. Okay. They nailed
Mm.
it. And in that moment, while they were speaking, and I was just lucky enough to be there, I said, hey, remember what we were talking about last week? You did it. You did a
Yeah.
great job at it. And so I think that's the kind of thing that just establishes that rapport and that trust and that relationship, and that you got me, coach, kind of feeling that people thrive from, or at least most people that I seem to be around thrive from. And I delight in doing that. It also fills my cup, right? I mean, as a leader, it fills my cup too.
Well, okay, so this is when you're talking about that intentionality and I love it. Like you said, making a note to ask again. Hey, you just did that really wonderful. Like calling it out when they did it well. All of that. What you're talking about that for like lower level staff, not lower in a bad way, but lower level staff because other executives that you manage, they're already perfect, right? They don't need any help or assistance or relationships. Is that the right understanding?
Oh, Alex. Oh my gosh. Yes, at all levels. We all need that. I need that. I need that. We all need that.
For everyone who doesn't know, I'm being very sarcastic. She knows. You've also I'm not sure if this is a real word. I should have actually looked it up to see if it was a real word. But I assume that you made it up in all your genius. A D-dabbler. A D-dabbler. Um, for those, I mean, I know what it means because everyone knows, but for those people who don't know what that means, maybe a few people, what is a D-dabbler?
I'm sure that there is an executive MBA version of what it means to be a D-dabbler. But on my LinkedIn profile and in my bio, sort of trying to think what are the things that I'm really, really good at? So people aside, right? That's what I would say my number one thing is that I'm good at. But aside from that, what I have gravitated towards, I just lovingly refer to as being really proficient at dabbling in an organization. And so, yes, my background is in marketing and I'm a chief marketing officer today, but I have a natural bent towards operations, efficiency, scale, workflow. So what does dabbling mean? Dabbling is what happens when over time, businesses layer on different initiatives, different projects, different resources, different investment cases, right? We all do this. And then at some point, 2 years later, 3 years later, you kind of look around the room and go, where's all my time and resources and energy going? And you end up noticing that you have a lot of these different strategic initiatives that have been executed over time, but maybe they're not actually providing the intended value that launched it in the first place. Or maybe it's no longer relevant to the business, but you just keep doing it because you do it. And so at some point in time, when a company is going, we need prioritization, we need investment to be focused in this direction versus this direction. The hard part about that is nobody can make up time. We can't find more time. We can't materialize money out of thin air. So the only way that you can really get to that is by a very, very strict focus on prioritization, which necessitates the D-dabble. That is, let's look at all the things that we're doing today, all the big projects. Let's lay out all the cards on the table, including my own. I
Mhm.
am very guilty of having many different, initiatives that run rampant over time that need to be reevaluated, and then being decisive and bold enough to say, we can stop. We can
Yeah.
stop. You cannot hang on to the sunk cost fallacy. You have to sometimes just say, it's time to put this to bed. It didn't achieve what we needed to achieve. Let's move on and focus our great talent and energy elsewhere. And so that's, I don't know that it's anyone else's fun thing to do, but I think the same people who love to clean out their closets and organize their drawers are the same people that like to dabble at work. So that's me on both fronts.
So, so I have to ask because this is a belief of mine. I've always seen this to be true. Every program, every initiative, every whatever, if it's been around for a while, it is benefiting someone. It may not be efficient, but it's benefiting someone. There's someone who is gaining, whether it be reputation or influence, whatever it may be, from something that's been around. So and when you try to remove those things, teeth can come out really quickly. So how do you de-dabble? How do you slow down or end programs and initiatives and so on and so forth that are no longer maybe the best, um, uh, where time should be being time and resources should be invested? How do you do that in a way where you don't end up getting bit?
It's not always easy, and it's not always well received. But here's the positioning that I find that is most useful. I'll give you a very specific use case from just a couple of weeks ago. There was a platform, a technology that was in use, and it was very meaningful, right? Just like you just described to a set of colleagues. As we were evaluating where to put our capital, resources, energy, and time, and at first pass, we have to keep this thing. This thing is really important to us. It's very, very, very strategic and critical to the business. Then we asked the question, you also need 2 people. Is this technology worth a trade-off of having 2 full-time employees do this awesome new thing that you're really excited about? Because we could do that. And suddenly you go, actually, not that critical, not that critical. So the point is, I don't think anybody wants things to be taken away.
Yeah.
Me too. And those are, by the way, that was my own technology that we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
So I said it was really, really critical. And then when I started looking at the trade-off, I was like, actually, it's not worth having 2 incredible, talented people that can execute something else that I'm really excited about. I think it's the same thing with just about anything you're trying to do that is an elimination of something. Nobody wants to eliminate if there's not a benefit on top of it. Otherwise, we would all be giving up sugar and we would all be giving up diets, right? I can't for the life of me convince myself to give up all my favorite foods if I don't truly, truly, truly believe that that elimination leads to something that's so much better in its place.
I think you're spot on. One bit of advice I tend to give to my coaching clients, and even at my speaking events, is the reality that you give up something every day to get something. You give up something of lesser value to gain something of greater value. The reality is like I tell you, we literally do not have free time. There is no such thing as free time. We use every minute, every second of every single day, whether it's sleeping or walking or on YouTube or whatever it is, we're using every minute of every day, every second of every day. So that means if you want to do something more productive, you want to add something to your life, there's something that you said, something really special you're excited about, that means you have to remove something in order to make the time to get whatever it is you want to get done. You have to be willing to give up something, but to your point, it's so much easier when it's something of greater value. It's it's easier pill to swallow. Yeah,
you nailed it, and I will be stealing some of those words when I have to say this conversation again. So thank you, and I will be remembering it to myself when I have to do my own trade-off conversation.
Well, I want to ask you, so, please, you're relatively new to General Assembly, relatively.
94 days, but who's counting? Go on.
And you were at Wiley for over 11 years. How did you decide how did you decide this opportunity was the right opportunity for you?
The decision whether or not it's the right opportunity one is just so many variables. And I think I had to distill down a number of factors, right? You know, I'm a data person too. So I have the grid and I have the metrics and I have all that. But if I'm being totally honest, there is sometimes just a point in your career where you just know that it's time. You just know that it's time. And I look back with such fondness and gratitude for every single chapter that I've had. I am such a huge fan of Wiley, of academic partnerships who acquired the business. And I'm thrilled with all that I've been able to accomplish in those settings. And now it's just time for something new for myself. And I think, I don't know, when you know, you know.
I have to, and the reason why I ask that is because I know there are many leaders who are in a place and they've been in a place. And if they're high performing and if they're exceptional leaders, they're probably always getting opportunities thrown their way. Hey, how about this? How about that? How about this? And sometimes they don't move, not because they're not ready for the next opportunity, but because they're not sure if that opportunity is the right opportunity. And so, one thing I encourage people to do is, kind of paint out their life. Like, what do you want your life to look like? Personal, professional. What are your goals, and so on and so forth? And then utilize that information to help you make the decision on whether any one opportunity is the right opportunity. Um, and last thing I'll say on this is I was telling on a recent podcast to tell the difference between a good decision for me, the difference between a good decision and a bad decision. A decision is a decision, but the difference between a good one and a bad one is a good one takes you closer to your goals. A bad one takes you further away from it because that it's a subjective. Like a good decision for me could be horrible for you, Miss Jourdan, and good decision for you could be horrible for me because we have different goals. So, but the trick in knowing whether a decision is good or bad is first knowing where you're trying to go. Because now you can know whether it's closer or further away from your goal. Understanding your goal is always going to change as you have more experience.
Okay, so I guess I'll let the audience in on a little secret. I had an incredible executive coach help me with that answer. And you are right. I was really struggling. I was really struggling to identify exactly what you just said, if it was the right time or how to make the decision. And I started with a grid and with data and all of this. And we took a step back. We had to take a step back, and you asked me to do something that I had not yet done, which was to really look at my life and my future and truly map out what it is that I wanted for myself. And once I started doing that, and you had me do it again and again until I really crystallized the key things that were important to me. And going through that exercise has been a bit of a North Star, not only in my professional career, Alex, but I think you should do this for the other facets of your life too. And I ask myself when I'm
Mhm.
signing up for a committee, when I'm deciding whether or not I can volunteer for something, whether or not I can participate in something related to my kids' school, whether or not I should go to a networking event for work, or whether I need to go to my daughter's cello lessons.
Mm.
The way that I get to those answers now is because I've done the deep work in trying to map out what I want for my life. Doesn't mean I get it right every single day. I don't.
Mhm.
But it does give me a better framework for my decisioning and to make sure that I don't over index for too long in any one particular area. So I had a couple of things that were really, really important to me. And I think the intersection of opportunity and preparedness sort of just revealed itself. And I took that chance. But I could walk away saying that I knew that this got me closer to. And then I would say one of the best pieces of advice that I got along the way, in addition to what you helped me do, was this notion that if you get it wrong, it's okay. I needed to hear
Mhm.
that. I needed to hear that time and time again from you and from others that, yeah, this is a big, bold move and it might not work out. What
Yeah.
is the worst case scenario if it doesn't work out when you take a risk and bet on yourself? What's the worst thing that can happen? Work through it. Answer those
Mhm.
questions. Answer those questions about what is the worst case scenario if this opportunity doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
Then, right, then you have your answer.
Yeah.
And I think that gave me a lot of comfort in being courageous enough to go in the unknown.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you also you made a little detour and said not just your professional life, your personal life. And for those of you who've been listening, I've started a new line of questioning that I ask all of my guests. So this is something you're gonna be hearing more and more often, and that's because so many of my coaching clients um, have been struggling with this. And so I'm asking this to everyone. So I love to hear your thoughts. Um, a lot of my clients are high net worth, right? And we meet people who move to these executive levels, um, they generally speaking, the vast majority of them did not come from money. They are themselves had to find a way from lesser means, find a way to navigate life's challenges to get to where they are now. And so they say, okay, well, I've gotten here and it made me strong, that the path that I took made me strong, but I'm not sure how difficult I should make it for my child. Or how do I continue to be ambitious while also being a good parent. And so I'm putting that on the table. Do you have any advice for other parents who are either struggling with, how do you raise a good human when things could be quote unquote easier for them, and how do you or how do you raise a good human while you may also be pursuing some of your ambitious goals?
Boy, that is a meaty topic. And I think Angela Duckworth has a lot of great information about how to have resilience with kids. And I only bring that up because I don't know the answer. I really don't know the answer. And I think about it all the time. So I think you know my story. I grew up in poverty. I grew up with addiction. I grew up with a lot of challenges to my beginnings. Um, and that does something to you, right? On the one side, overcoming obstacles and hurdles in that way breeds this incredible resilience and grit, and that is the fire that fuels me every single day. It's not lost on me what my childhood was like, and it's never left me. So even today, when I think about work and my accountability to a project, it's still there, that I've got to have momentum. I've got to own it.
Yeah.
I've got to just have that resilience and grit. um Now I have built the life that I had always dreamed of for my family and for my children. And I love that I could take my daughter to the Olivia Rodrigo concert. And I love that my son can have jujitsu and golf lessons and flag football. When I think about when I wanted to go to concerts or when I wanted to participate in sports, those things were not available to me. And I say, gosh, how do we balance being afforded all of these things and also have resilience and grit and kindness and
Mhm.
humanity and empathy? And I guess the one thing I can say that I know I'm doing a decent job at is talking about it
Mm.
all the time, all the time. We're very, very open about what the expectations are with being a good human.
Yeah.
When I see something that doesn't fit in that area that I would want to see my children behaving in, we have allowance. And I know, allowance is a hot topic for parents, but yes, we have that. And we make sure that a percentage of that goes towards charities and other things. And
Mhm.
we have my kids participate in those things directly. It's not just put it in the app and I'll pay it on your behalf. No, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a tough one. I'll be reading any resources that you have on it and trying to learn as well. But it's important. It's really, really important. I think a lot of parents struggle with that.
Well, and that's the reason why I've started asking that question. I mean, every single guest I've brought on and asked that question have said, "Oh my God, this is something I struggle with." Like everyone, it's again parenting already. Again, my little boy's 7.5 months. It's not easy. I mean, there's a million different books out there, and a million different books will tell you a million different ways to do it. And then you say, "Oh my God, am I doing it wrong?" Um, and so parenting is one of those things that's just difficult, period. And the more access to opportunities, yes, absolutely makes things quote unquote easier in some respects, but then it makes decisions even harder in other respects. So I love asking this question because so many different perspectives are being shared. And I'm already getting a lot of feedback from the audience and saying how helpful it is to hear from other leaders who are dealing with the same or very similar situations. And lastly, I don't think I've shared with you, but that my wife and I were talking through like who I am and the
What'd you come up with?
well the the I still, as many people, deal with imposter syndrome, and I have a tendency to seek accolades. I want people to say, "Hey, Alex, you did a good job." Like that makes me feel good. And we were talking about where that comes from. And as I talked about briefly in my book, Relationships That Work, um,
Hashtag
my
read it. It's great.
thank you. My biological father left when I was, a couple days old. And not only did he leave, it'd be one thing if he just left. But every once in a while, he'd come back into town and he'd meet with my mom, meet with me as a kid. And I still remember like meeting at a gas station at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning. And he'd say, "Hey, little guy, he'd give me a hug and say, 'Hey, if you need anything, just let me ask. Just ask me.'" And as a kid, you're like, "Okay, cool, thank you so much." I remember asking him for like a Sega. Um, Never got it. Then like, a couple of years later, he'd call me on the phone. He'd be calling from Guam or something, and he'd be like, "Hey, if you never need anything, just let me know." I write him a letter. Never got a response, and so I spent the vast majority of my childhood and early adulthood just wanting to be appreciated. Like, everything I did was, maybe if I'm a great football player, maybe if I'm great at my career, maybe if I'm great at these things, he'll value me enough to want to talk to me, because I have no relationship with the guy. But like, you talked about for a second, you were talking about how your upbringing frames your way of thinking even today. And I think about it even for myself. Like, I still feel like I think I'm over it, but then something will happen and I revert to, that same perspective, that same mindset that came from, how I was raised.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard to shake, a scarcity mindset. That takes a lot of work to say, it's okay. It's okay. We don't,
Yeah.
you have to overcome a lot of the scarcity mindset thinking when you grow up in certain socioeconomic factors.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Completely
Well,
identify that.
well, one thing I have to ask you about, I know we're going to start wrapping up soon, but one thing I have to ask you, um, you came up with a really cool like model, a way of becoming very educated, very, very insightful, and being able to be very quote unquote successful within a relatively short period of time. You call it Project Flat. I'd love if you could share your model and what actually drove you to create that.
So, Project Flat, I had no idea at the time that I was creating a model of any sort. Here's what I knew. At the intersection of preparedness and opportunity, I found myself transitioned from a head of marketing role to a COO type of role. And this is in operations. And I suddenly found myself sitting in different rooms that I had not been accustomed to, which was executive leadership teams. We were working on board prep and earnings calls and business performance. And what I quickly realized in that setting, everyone spoke the language of finance. Everyone spoke the business language terms. And I quickly realized that I had an arsenal of marketing terms and marketing knowledge and marketing buzzwords. But just because I went to sleep on a Tuesday and woke up head of operations did not mean that suddenly I knew what EBITDA and CapEx and OpEx meant. No, I didn't speak that language. And so I noticed a gap, a real big skills gap in financial literacy. Now, because I'm a marketer, I had to market this to myself. I had to get myself excited. This literally was a name that I gave to myself, because if I didn't have that much intentionality around it, I don't think I would have went all in on upskilling this. And it was such a foreign and uncomfortable type of language for me to start investing in. Okay.
Mhm.
So Project Flat was financial literacy advancement training. Flat, financial literacy advancement training. And Project Flat was two things. One, needing to upskill financial literacy advancement training. Two, it was so that I could flatten the playing field, flatten my learning curve. I needed a seat at the table. I needed to be participating in that room, and I needed to understand the concepts and the applications of them for myself. So at the time, I didn't have a long runway, despite me being in higher education and being a huge believer in education. I just didn't have the runway to go back for a 2-year program. So what I did is I said, okay, what will take me from zero to knowledgeable in an intense period of time, but a shortened period of time? So I literally got out this, and I started jotting down all of these different things that I would do, the books that I would read, the earnings calls that I would attend, the articles, the blogs, the podcasts, the books. And then it did, at the end of it, culminate with a finance certificate from Harvard Business School. But I will tell you, yes, that was critical, important learning, and that was instrumental for closing that skills gap for myself. But it is not the whole end of where my learning came from. What I would do all along the way, and I journaled every single aspect of this. I journaled all along the way. I would attend an earnings call, and then I would jot down all sorts of things that I had questions about or that I thought would be useful to me in my application of some of the financial concepts. Then I would literally schedule time on our head of investor relations calendar and say, hey, I'm working on this skills gap. I'm putting myself on Project Flat, which is my own professional development plan. And I'm hoping that I can learn from you. And I've got a couple of questions. You know what I found out, Alex? Not a single person, not one person said, I don't want to help you learn that, Jourdan. They were all so delighted that somebody was taking the initiative to learn a new domain, and somebody who's got years and years and years of expertise often wants to share their knowledge. And so I would do that, right? I would go to meetings and I would prep for them with somebody who knew how to speak the language really well. I'd make sure that I was interpreting the financial terms and applying it correctly. I'd go to the meeting, I'd present it using my new language, my new vocabulary. Then I would write down everything that I knew I didn't do that great. And I would journal it. And then I would go to the person and say, hey, these are the spots that I don't think I did so good on. You were there. How would you have described that? How would you have crystallized it? How would you have condensed it? And they would workshop it with me. And then, over time, when I would see them perform that kind of task really well, I'd say, hey, you knocked that out of the park. I want to be able to speak in that way. Can you help me understand how you got to that point? And time and time and time and time again, that ability to connect with others who've been there, done that, and know how to interpret the data in that way were just instrumental in my upskilling. So when I did the course, I did it with a friend who was also going through upskilling. We would do these kinds of things together. It really helped to bring a friend along. But again, I had no idea that I was making Project Flat a thing. But what I did several months later, maybe it was a year or so later, I decided to be pretty vulnerable. I had never done something like that before, where I actually show images of my journal. I show when I don't get it right. I show the things that I struggled with early on as I learned to speak about margin and margin suppression and macroeconomic factors and all of those sorts of things. But I broke it down into all the steps that I took, play by play by play by play, literally uploaded my Word document of Project Flat. So that if you find yourself in a spot where you want to upskill in this domain, you can just download it, customize it, make it your own. And I think if you could take one piece away from this, it is you have to own your own professional development. You have to own it. Yeah. You have to take the initiative to see the gap. Or if you're told that there is a gap, you have to own doing something about it. Yeah. And it doesn't always mean you upskill. What works for one person may not work for another person. You have to find what's going to work best for you. And I would say the more that you can involve your network and the more that you express gratitude and appreciation to those people who helped you along the way, who will then feed back into your learning and development over the way, you will learn so much better and you will grow so much more. So that's a little bit about what Project Flat is. And you can see it on my website, jourdanhathaway.me, or you could look at it on LinkedIn. I published all of it, the good, bad, and ugly, and you'll see all of the people that I have tagged in that were part of this learning. It was not Jourdan upskilling herself. It was Jourdan owning her professional development, but other people helping me fill that gap. So
#wow. And this is why everyone loves Jourdan. And we're gonna create a show about this. They have Everyone Hates Chris. We're gonna do Everyone Loves Jourdan. Um,
I know about that. I
so
did used to steal all the gardenias off of my neighbor's yard, and she never really liked that. So everyone but her will be in the club.
so I have to ask you really quickly, because we're going to open the floor for you to share any final thoughts. But if we were to have a show, Everyone Loves Jourdan, who would play you? Which actress would play you?
Well, I hope it would be Anne Hathaway, because I'm Jourdan Hathaway, and it just feels right to me.
Awesome sauce. So, Miss Anne, you know what the deal is. Let's get on this. Madam, thank you so much for being here with us today. What thoughts, ideas, feedback, anything to share with our guests as we begin to wrap up?
I have to just encourage you to be bold and be courageous, and that boldness and courage, to be bold, to be courageous, and to bet on yourself, and to be completely and utterly okay with not knowing how to do something. It is perfectly okay to recognize a gap in your professional development and to go after it and say, I'm setting my targets over here, and I've got this chasm to fill over here, and going after it. The first couple of times that I went into the meeting and tried to use my new financial vocabulary, didn't go great, guys. It wasn't great. There was a lot of things that when you went to double click later, I realized, I don't have the whole story down, right? I don't understand the application of it. It takes rep after rep, cycle after cycle, immersion after immersion. And those things will come in time, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to own it. And if you are in a spot, if you are in a position of leadership or power or access, please, if you can, give back your time. It is so important for all of the younger Jordans, younger Alexes who are saying, I need the accolades, I need the access, I need to be seen, for us to help them be seen, for us to help them have the access. So I hope I'm living that out. I'm trying to do that every single day. And, I continue to be a work in progress myself and looking for what my next upskill and gap is, which is I'm lucky to work at General Assembly, where we are all about upskilling and reskilling and talent solutions. So excited.
Hey, that is wonderful. I'm going to share with you really quickly, everyone. I was on a phone call with a friend today. Good friend. He has a nonprofit organization, and they are a orchestra, and he met with a billionaire a week ago. I met with him for breakfast, and the billionaire said, a great conversation. The guy says, hey, look, I'm expecting to see really big things from you. And my friend replied back, well, I'm going to need your help with that. And I thought that was a perfect response. And it put the guy on the spot, like, yeah, I want to do good things, but I need and want and would love your help. Like, that was a great response. Everyone, please, yes, be out there again. Tell people, don't just look back, reach back. Find ways to help and grow others. One of the things you can do to help them grow and develop in their careers is to click the like, click the share, subscribe to this podcast, leave your comments, and share this episode with them. Because again, if you found anything of value during this episode, I promise you someone else will, your colleague, your mentee, your mentor, your supervisors, your staff. I promise you they'll benefit from what was just shared in today's episode. As I say all the time, I am very handsome. I say that all the time. The other thing I'll say, I encourage y'all, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.